In the not-too-distant future, humanity turns its gaze toward the stars in search of new places to inhabit and potential intelligent life. This effort results in the creation of colonies on both the Moon and Mars. Roy, who has aspired to be an astronaut since he was a boy, is now one of them. He's currently being assessed psychologically ahead of a new assignment. He reassures the evaluators that he's doing well and keeps his composed, stoic demeanor, but his mind keeps drifting back to Eve, his wife, who left him because his job consumed all his attention. Today's task involves repairing a malfunctioning robotic arm on one of Earth's many orbital antennas. Roy ascends a towering structure without hesitation. However, things quickly spiral when a blinking light appears and an electrical surge causes part of the antenna to explode, killing several astronauts. Roy races to cut the power and successfully does so, but another blast sends him plummeting. Despite this, he stays calm and manages to deploy his parachute, landing back on Earth safely. Later, at home, Roy reflects on the fact that he doesn't feel much after such a miraculous escape. All he can recall is Eve once telling him he tends to self-destruct. Watching the news, he learns that violent electrical surges have been causing worldwide devastation. Soon afterward, Spacecom's top leadership summons Roy to a confidential briefing. They're impressed by how composed he remains under pressure and by the fact he has no family ties to complicate things. They reveal cosmic ray images near Neptune, indicating bursts of energy causing the electrical storms. This leads them to Project Lima, a mission Roy knows well. His father, Clifford, led it 29 years ago to explore deep space. After 16 years, all contact was lost, and the mission was presumed a failure. Spacecom halted further deep space ventures, believing the crew perished. However, the new surges hint Clifford might still be alive. The source of the surges appears to be an antimatter malfunction, the same energy Project Lima used, which could spiral into a catastrophic chain reaction, threatening the solar system. Spacecom wants Roy to head to Mars and try to contact Clifford. Hearing from his son may prompt Clifford to respond. Roy remains emotionally unreadable during the meeting but understands he's being exploited and accepts the mission regardless. As Roy gets ready, he watches the final video message his father sent from the edge of Neptune. Clifford left when Roy was just 16. In the recording, Clifford rambles about the search for life and ends it simply with, "I love you, son." Just then, Roy is approached by Pute, an old colleague of his father's, who will accompany him on the journey. Pute asks if Roy is emotionally ready. Roy says he still believes his father is gone, but Pute warns that they must consider Clifford may be evading them. The night before launch, Roy tries to record a message for Eve but finds himself unable to speak and doesn't send it. During the next psych evaluation, he admits he's barely slept but claims he's mentally prepared. He's cleared for departure. Since the mission is covert, Roy is to travel to the Moon via commercial flight before launching to Mars from there. The flight is uneventful, but passengers are reminded that lunar territories are unregulated, filled with disputed mining zones and conflict areas. At the Moon colony, Roy notes it's become a tourist attraction, something his father would have despised. He and Pute board a train to Spacecom's lunar base. Pute explains the personnel they're unaware of their true objective. The launch site lies beyond hostile ground, so they'll travel with armed escorts. Roy asks when Pute last spoke to Clifford. Pute reveals it was during a falling out in which Clifford branded him a traitor. Pute asks if Roy is nervous, but Roy insists he's not. He sees his father as a hero and resents Spacecom for framing him otherwise. At the base, Roy and Pute receive rovers and begin their journey with soldiers in tow. But as they pass through open terrain, they are ambushed by pirates. Gunfire erupts, and Roy's guards are killed instantly. His suit is torn, but he patches it quickly. The driver is shot, so Roy moves the body and takes the wheel, swerving through structures to shake off their attackers. He manages to shoot at the remaining pirates, but they ram his vehicle, sending him into a crater. Roy pretends the rover is disabled. Once the pirates leave, he resumes driving and escapes under cover of night. The base fires missiles to eliminate the threat once Roy and Pute are safely away. Upon arrival at the launch pad, Pute confesses he was injured during the ambush and can't proceed to Mars. Roy should feel shaken to lose an ally, but he remains emotionally restrained. Before parting, Pute hands him a secure data unit and warns it contains material that will place Roy at serious risk, as Spacecom does not fully trust him. Roy boards the rocket to Mars and meets the crew, including Captain Tanner, who has recently undergone emergency surgery. The voyage will take 19 days, and no one aboard knows Roy's real purpose. The crew receives mood stabilizers, but Roy hides his dose inside his suit instead of ingesting it. Alone, Roy examines the information in Pute's unit. It reveals Spacecom received a distress message from Project Lima. Clifford had deliberately cut off external communication. If contact fails, Roy is to destroy both the station and his father to stop the energy bursts. Roy begins to question what drove Clifford to that decision, wondering whether he lost control or had a greater plan. He remembers Clifford once promised they'd work together, a promise never fulfilled. During the journey, the ship receives a distress call from a nearby station. Captain Tanner insists they respond per protocol. Roy wants to remain focused, but the co-pilot is too frightened, so Roy agrees to accompany Tanner. They split up to search the station. Roy finds claw marks along the walls. When he reunites with Tanner, he discovers him being attacked by a baboon. Roy uses a stun gun to fight off the animal, but another one appears. Roy drags Tanner to a separate room, seals the hatch with tape, and holds it closed. He triggers the airlock pressure, causing the baboons to explode. Roy returns with Tanner to their ship, but despite the medic's efforts, Tanner dies. His body is released into space. Later, as the crew sleeps, Roy undergoes another psychological screening. He explains Tanner's death didn't stir any emotion in him. When prompted, Roy admits he recognized his own buried fury in the baboon's rage. That anger stems from his father's abandonment, but beneath it lies pain. Pain that has prevented him from forming close bonds. The co-pilot takes over as captain, and Roy is promoted to co-pilot. As they near Mars, a sudden power surge disrupts the system. They are forced to perform a manual landing after the autopilot fails. The pilot is paralyzed by fear, so Roy steps in, takes over the controls, and safely lands the ship himself. He assures his shaken colleague he won't inform Spacecom about the incident. The team then arrives at the Airsoft research base, where Roy meets Director Helen. She's unaware of the classified mission details, so she simply guides him to a restricted area where only authorized personnel are permitted. Roy is given a cold, scripted message to deliver, meant to reassure Clifford that help is on the way and to request any valuable data he might have. Unfortunately, no reply comes, and the technicians decide to try again later. Roy retreats to the comfort room, battling inner doubts, uncertain whether he wants to find his father out of love or just to escape his shadow. When it's time for a second transmission, Roy ignores the script and speaks from the heart. He recalls personal memories, his own path as an astronaut, and his longing to reconnect with his father. The technicians show signs of excitement around the communication systems, indicating a message has come through. But when Roy requests to hear it, he's denied access. High Command then declares Roy unfit for the mission due to his emotional involvement and decides to send him back to Earth. As he exits, Roy notices a team preparing to leave and tries to question them, but they brush him off without a word. Once on Earth, he undergoes another psychological assessment. This time, his frustration and emotional turmoil surface, throwing off his biochemistry. He's returned to the comfort room. Later, Helen visits seeking the truth. At first, Roy withholds information, but she persuades him by revealing her own past. Born on Mars, orphaned by Project Lima. She was ordered to prepare a nuclear missile bound for Neptune, but she demands to understand the reasons behind it. Roy shares what little he knows, and Helen shows him an old recording. Clifford is indeed alive, and terrifying screams echo in the background. Clifford explains that his crew revolted, wanting to return home. To preserve the mission, he claims he had no option but to kill them. Spacecom labeled him a hero to cover the incident. Roy, driven to face his father, accepts Helen's help. She sneaks him out via rover and drops him at a sewer entrance to access the rocket unnoticed. Roy navigates through foul, submerged tunnels and eventually reaches the launch platform, boarding the rocket just in time. He's quickly detected by the crew. Roy insists he's not a threat, but orders from base demand his neutralization. 2 astronauts confront him. The rocket's violent acceleration hurls one fatally against the wall. The second engages Roy in a fight, while the captain fires but misses, accidentally puncturing the oxygen tanks. The air turns toxic. Roy attempts to save the captain by applying a mask, but it's too late. Both astronauts perish, and their bodies are ejected. Roy then sends a final message to the base, affirming his commitment to the mission before cutting all communication. The journey will last 79 days, time Roy spends isolated with remorse. He attaches a feeding line to his stomach and uses electrodes to keep his muscles active. He tries to stay mentally engaged, thinking about Eve and his father. But watching Eve's last message is a mistake. She confesses she never really knew him because he was always gone. Roy also views old footage of Clifford during saner, more hopeful times. The emotional weight of these clips is heavy. He continues to dream of his past, his childhood, his mother, his father, and Eve. Once he craved solitude, but now the emptiness is driving him toward madness. Roy reflects on the people he has let down and how self-centered he's been. As he nears Neptune, he barely clings to sanity but gathers enough strength to proceed. He takes a shuttle toward the Lima station, only for it to suffer an electrical surge and fail to dock. Roy tries reaching Clifford but receives no answer. Left with no other choice, he exits the shuttle and spacewalks to the station. Inside, he finds corpses of the crew floating in silence. a vintage music video looping on a nearby screen. He explores further and finds Clifford's quarters, cluttered with obsessive notes on the search for alien life. Roy continues and sets up the nuclear device. Eventually, Clifford appears. Roy keeps a blank expression, but sadness flickers in his eyes. Clifford explains that he's been trying to fix the power issues caused by the mutiny. He sees himself as the captain and the station as his ship, his home. He has no interest in returning to Earth, and admits he never really loved his family. Roy tells him he still cares and reaches out. Clifford hesitates, then accepts Roy's help and dons a spacesuit. Clifford expresses pride in Roy for making it this far and wonders aloud if they could have been a stronger team if things had been different. Roy insists it's not a total loss. They now have each other. They arm the bomb with a 3-hour timer and prepare to leave. But as they exit, Clifford attempts to drift off into space. Roy clings to the tether, trying to keep him from floating away. Clifford pleads to be let go, and Roy finally respects his wish, releasing the tether. Clifford disappears into the cosmos. Roy allows himself a moment of emotional collapse, drifting aimlessly, contemplating surrender. But then he realizes he still has a chance. Using his suit's thrusters, he returns to the station, pries off a hatch, and uses it as a makeshift shield to navigate through Neptune's asteroid ring. He pushes forward toward the rocket, remembering Clifford's last words, that his obsession blinded him to the wonder already present in the universe. Roy slams into the rocket, nearly losing grip, but catches the handrail just in time and re-enters. With almost no fuel left, he waits as the station explodes and uses the blast wave to propel the ship forward. After many days, Roy finally lands safely back on Earth. Soldiers recover him and confirm the successful transmission of Project Lima's research. During his next mental evaluation, Roy reports he's been sleeping peacefully, feels present and aware, and is finally ready to reconnect with those he loves, particularly Eve, and begin anew.